What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris, man. We are here on episode 3 of Work Hard, Play Hard podcast, Conversations with CD. We're about to bring on my man Steve Wyche, who works with the NFL Network. He is a graduate of Howard University. He is worked for the Miami Herald for 9 years, worked for the Atlanta Constitutional for 4 years, has been with the NFL Network for the past 13 years. He also has his own podcast with another writer in Jim Trotter, Huddle and Flow, and we are about to bring him on, baby. So yes, indeed. Let's welcome. Hello, Steve. What's going on? How we doing? All right. Let's see. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Chris, you got me?
Yes, sir. How we doing, sir? How we
I'm
doing?
doing well, my man. How's everything?
Everything's good. It's been a while since we caught up, but yeah, it's great. It's great. I gotta ask, how are you and your family doing?
We are all doing well. Wife and kids are doing great, man. So I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I appreciate you coming on. Definitely appreciate it. Without any further ado, I'm definitely gonna get to it and start it up. So native of I believe St. Louis, Missouri. If I'm
I'm a
not,
native of Minneapolis. I lived there for 9 years, but I grew up mainly in St. Louis.
so you grew up in St. Louis, but from Minneapolis. Got
Correct.
you. Okay.
Correct.
I would love for you to sort of talk about your childhood, talk about your early your playing days in college, and what ultimately got you started, or what ultimately motivated you to want to go into this professional field.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, I grew up, in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
My parents moved to St. Louis when I was in third grade,
Okay.
when you moved to St. Louis, you moved to an area where weren't a whole lot of people who looked like me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so but it wasn't a thing. I didn't think about it, really growing up until I got like into high school. Um, but it was just we go play baseball games or football games or basketball games. You would hear some stuff from time to time, but they were taking L's, so you just got to give them their little sheet of hate to cry in while they're losing, or someone get a home run off their kid or something like that. So,
Right. Right.
but growing up, I was really involved in athletics. Thank God, because I was super competitive.
Hmm.
Um, I think at the high school, just kind of whittled it down to football by the time I graduated.
Okay.
Uh, but in the meantime, while all that was going on, that's when the kind of the journalism thing was going on, Chris. It's when I realized I wasn't good at math or science. So that was not going to be a career option for me. Everyone see, I'm going to go to college and major in business. I'm like, I'm a major in the business of avoiding business.
Got you.
So, yeah. So, I pursued the journalism field. I liked it. My father was a sales executive for the NBC affiliate
Okay.
in St. Louis. So I was kind of around it, when I would go visit him. My parents were divorced, but I would go visit him when I was old enough to drive, like at the studio. And then,
Okay.
so I'd be around, and him and I would go to a baseball Cardinals game or something like that. And so it's just something I always wanted to do. I was really motivated to do it. I actually, when I was getting recruited for football, I turned some schools down because they didn't have journalism programs or communications programs. I was like, that's what I really want to study. And you don't have that to offer. I'm not your typical dude who wants to become a teacher or, an athletic, something involved in that. This is what I want to do.
Right.
And so I ended up at Missouri as a preferred walk-on. It was one of those things where they were right in it, and they signed a JUCO guy. He happened to be a much better player than me. A guy named Gary Justice. Him and I are friends. We're much better players.
So you knew what it was, what you saying when you got
Well, I
there.
didn't then. I mean, when I got there, I was like, okay, I'm good. And then we put the pads on. I was like, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Word.
But, yeah, so the redshirt year, I got up, I really developed. I got physically strong enough and all that good stuff. And then the coaches got fired. So the new guys came in, and I thought I was really on the fringe of kind of getting into that rotation outside linebacker, that fifth or sixth outside linebacker special teams guy. I still wasn't ready to start. I mean, that's back when Oklahoma and Nebraska were throwing bows at people, and that's we played them every year in the conference. But and they were honest with me. They were like, "You're kind of like, you weren't part of our group or whatever, so we'll help you transfer out." So I was like, "All right, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go?" And then I was home one weekend. A buddy of mine said, "Let's transfer to a black school." I said, "Great idea." My mother and father went to Hampton, and so I applied to Howard and Hampton. The football coach at Howard was Willie Jeffries, who had recruited me. He didn't recruit me. He sent me some letters when he was at Wichita State. So we had some conversations. I was going to go out to Howard and play football, but between the time I decided to transfer and football practice, I lost my stinger and was like, I'm just going to focus on school.
Got you.
And so that's how it all really came to be. And especially when I got to Howard, I mean, there were so many motivated peers. Michelle Miller, who is on CBS this morning. Frederica Whitfield was a couple years older than me. She's on CNN.
Yeah.
Stan Verrett. We graduated together. He was, and then Gus Johnson at Fox, and we were all together.
Right.
So I went there like, okay, my peers are going to hold me academically accountable. I got to keep up, that's really, you're stacking wins, as coaches like to say in football. So you're just stacking progress, and having that peer accountability was really, really huge. It helped me get to where I wanted to be.
Yeah, it's always great to have peers that, inspire you to want to, be the best that you can be, especially when you see somebody else going hard. You want to just go as hard as them. There's no doubt about it. You graduate from Howard University, and then right out of Howard, you go to the Richmond, I believe, Virginia Times, so you cover for a year. You cover prep sports for a year. And then you get your shot at the Miami Herald, which is your first big-time job. Talk about what you learned from your 9 years there at the Miami Herald that you took from you being in that first job right out of college.
Well, Richmond, Virginia was my first big-time job. I know you mentioned it. That was not a small-time job. I mean, it was very important for that community for what we did. It was called medium-sized market. For what we did, though, it was very, very important.
Yeah.
And I do not want to undersell the lessons I've learned, the lessons I was taught by some fantastic people.
Right.
In a city that I loved. I mean, I loved living in Richmond. It was great for the year and a half I was there. So, but then once I got to Miami, I went down there and covered high school sports in the Fort Lauderdale bureau of the Miami Herald.
Wow.
But, high school sports was huge. I mean, I ended up covering guys who I would end up covering, a couple years later at Auburn and Florida and stuff like that. And then some of them in the NFL.
Right.
So I covered high school sports. I really kind of created a break for myself covering boxing. We didn't have a boxing writer. It was huge in that South Florida community. And I was like, why don't we have a boxing writer? I'll do it. Right. I had a lot to learn, but I immersed myself in there so much. The next thing I know, I'm flying to Vegas covering fights, with Tyson and Holyfield and Riddick Bowe and Evander. So, that was really kind of the break. And then the Miami Dolphins moved near Fort Lauderdale, where they are now, in Davie. So since I was there, I was the backup to the beat writer Armando Salguero.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years and really learned a lot, because it was Don Shula's last couple of years. And this is a man I just have immeasurable respect for, rest his soul. He was just an incredible man, great locker room, a lot of respect. Dan Marino, all those guys. And then Jimmy Johnson comes in to replace Shula.
Right.
And Jimmy was awesome.
Right.
He was great. So just learning to deal with, you've got Shula, this respected stoic personality, and then Jimmy, who comes in throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs every day. It was the best. I learned it was the best. I mean, the players he brought in, it was kind of a nut house, but it was great learning that. And then from that point, it was weird because I'm covering them. And all of a sudden, our writer, Judy Batista, who works for NFL Network, and Judy and I came in together. We started together in the Fort Lauderdale bureau of Miami. Okay. She was covering the Miami Hurricanes football team. And she left to take a job at the New York Times. They're like, Steve, we got to put you on the Hurricanes for like the rest of the season. and I had been kind of removed from college football. They were down. They were on probation
Right.
because of an investigation that my paper did. So they, they tried their best not to be nice to me, but I really didn't care because I knew I wasn't a long timer for the beat.
Right.
But everybody there was pretty darn good to me.
Yeah.
And then another one of our writers left who covered the Miami Heat. So I went like straight from the Hurricanes to covering the Heat.
Wow.
And I ended up covering them for 2.5 years before going to the Washington Post to cover the NBA there. So I covered the NBA for 7 years, which was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, first you said you started off in boxing, or you got there covering high school sports, and then you said you went to boxing, then you went to covering the Miami Dolphins, and that was kind of Dan Marino's last year, in 98, 99, his last years. In the middle of that, the Hurricanes.
No, I was actually there. I was actually there when he was still dealing. I covered the Dolphins in 94 and 95 and parts of 96. So he was still dealing then, but it was a transition from Shula to Jimmy.
Right. Jimmy Johnson took over. And then obviously the Hurricanes, I believe they won when you got there in 91.
They were down. No, they were down. They were on probation. They were winning like 6 games a year.
Okay. I know I'm there. Dennis Erickson did win a national championship with them, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. Butch Davis had just taken over.
Right.
When I was there. So he really had a lot of things to correct with that program, and he did a great job of doing that.
That's what's up. I like that. Let me ask you some of your favorite things. Okay? I'm just gonna ask you just off the top, kind of shoot. Favorite food.
Favorite food, Indian food, man. Chicken tikka masala.
Ooh, God bless your heart.
Tandoori chicken. Now, Indian food all day. I can eat it every day, man.
I tried it once. It just didn't work for me for some reason, but I tried it. I did.
Okay.
Favorite music?
What's that?
Favorite music?
Oh, I'm real eclectic with my tunes.
Okay.
I mean, mainly like R&B and hip hop, but I love, like, one of my favorite artists is Leon Bridges. Young dude, sings a lot of old school Sam Cooke sound and stuff. So I love Leon Bridges. But I'm also like, that new J. Cole is like super hot. That hit me hard on the workout playlist. But I'm all over the music map. I mean, her reggae music big time. My wife is Jamaican, so I'm all over the reggae sound. That. So yeah, it's an eclectic playlist. Anything I have.
I like the fact that you like different kind of genres in the same way. Totally. I would say, what is your favorite genre of movies to watch?
Oh man, I'm into like. It's crazy. It's changing as I'm aging because I'm getting more into the documentary style. But I would say for pure entertainment style, it is espionage. Okay. But also the real creative stuff. Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite. Usual Suspects is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh yeah.
But anything. I'm blanking on the filmmaker Guy Ritchie. I mean, anything he makes.
Okay.
Lock, Stock, and Snatch. Anything like that are that's it. But I'm getting into a lot of the documentaries now too.
Okay.
Exterminate the Brutes. Watch that. I believe it is on Amazon.
Okay.
But it basically tells history, not from the victors. Wow. It tells the real history, and it is a tough watch.
And if you could say that one more time for me, what's the title?
Exterminate the Brutes. Exterminate the Brutes. It is.
I like that. Okay. I got you. I would definitely check that out. That's awesome. Favorite restaurant to go to?
Favorite restaurant's a place here in LA called the Tin Roof Bistro.
Tin Roof Bistro.
It's not Indian food, but just you sit outside. Me and my wife like to go out there, chill, get a nice bottle of wine. It's our favorite spot.
That's a great follow-up question. I was going to ask you, what is your favorite wine? Is it red? Is it white? And what's the bottle?
Veteran tip. When the sun is up, it's white. When the sun goes down, it's red.
I'm gonna keep that in mind because I'm a red guy. I'm a red guy.
Some people have preference. You're a red guy. Like I said, I've got eclectic palates as well. Okay. And right now, I'm really into a local California winery just north of Santa Barbara called Roblar. My wife and I just discovered it on our last trip up there.
Right.
The Viognier White and it's a thing they have called Triumph, which is a red blend, which is lovely.
Mm. I went on one wine tour, and that's where I discovered my love for red wine. And definitely,
Where was it?
It was in California.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in California, that's where I'm from. So when I went back out there, visited some cousins, and went on a wine tour. And I didn't want to drink too much, but I definitely tasted some. That's for sure. That's where I discovered chocolate wine as well. And I was like, chocolate wine? What?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had that. So interesting. Um, you say you covered the Wizards because once you left Miami Herald, you did, I believe you covered the Wizards from that 2000, 2004 before you came here.
Yeah, from 99 to 04, yeah.
Right. Before you came here to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Obviously, that was the Jordan years when you kind of covered them. Talk about covering the Wizards and how much of a roller coaster that was, covering that.
Oh, my God. Well, when I first got there, it was the work stoppage, just a work lockout. So they only played like 50 games that year. So half the stories I'm writing are labor peace. Then it's 50 games, and it's chaos. I think they won 19 games.
Right.
They had some players like Rod Strickland was like a superstar, most underrated player in NBA history, one of the most underrated players.
Wow. Okay.
But when Jordan came in, it was so huge because he had no tie to the city, no tie to the club.
Right.
He's larger than life, and you think he's just going to wave the magic wand and it's going to work. And you kind of see right away some of the pieces he put in place rankled the establishment, because he's bringing in his guys and he's not keeping Wes Unseld, the GM, and some of the other guys fully, informed. Yet Michael was living in Chicago, and he's expecting Wes, to give him, everything that's going on there. And it doesn't work like that. You got to see it for yourself.
Right.
And Wes was an incredible human being. And so, he hires Leonard Hamilton as his coach at the University of Miami, who was on nobody's radar. That was a 1-year disaster.
Right.
He drafts Kwame Brown. Kwame fired it up on YouTube recently. But it was an incredible trip because you knew it. And then when MJ came back to play,
right.
Oh my God, man. I mean, it was a circus everywhere. It's like the Beatles, he'd come out of the hotel front door to the bus. He'd be walking 15 feet and there would be people running out of stores to see him. And, it was insane.
Wow.
But, it quickly went from, we're going to draft Kwame Brown and young guys like that, Natan Thomas, and develop these guys, to I'm trading Richard Hamilton for Jerry Stackhouse. I'm bringing in Christian Laettner and Charles Oakley and these guys because we want to win.
Right. And
they just couldn't get together. Brought in Doug Collins, who was a hell of a coach, and it was chaos, especially after they let MJ go.
Right.
Woo. Because he didn't see it coming. Nobody really saw it coming. There's an article written by the New York Times that kind of spelled it out, like, here's some of the stuff he did, which really kind of disrespected the owner, Abe Pollin.
Yep.
And some of the other, and some of the other people in the organization. I was like, yeah, that happened. And so you could see it coming. And then but then they bring in Eddie Jordan, and he does a really good job turning around, signs Gilbert Arenas, who, oh man, that dude was a trip to cover, but he could play. He could play, man. That dude could play. So, and then in 04, when they really started getting going for a little bit, that's when I came down to Atlanta.
Absolutely. And obviously, like you said, 99, 04, the lockout year. And then you go and cover Jordan, and then he trades, which I never understood. I understood, but it was silly of a trade. Rip Hamilton for Jerry Stackhouse. I get the UNC connection, obviously, but the team was playing so well. Actually, that first year he came back, they had a chance to make the playoffs. If I remember that 02 year. And it just went all to hell after that. And
his knees started acting up, and then all these other guys are like, this is about him, and it's not about the team.
Right.
And so it was a, ownership was like great. Our arena sold out all the time. Every arena around the NBA is sold out all the time. But then when he just couldn't stay healthy, and just the team chemistry, it just was not it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you went to Atlanta Journal Constitution for the next 4 years, came down here to the A where I'm at, and I just would love for you to talk about because obviously the big time story, this big time story is there, but the big time story in the middle of that was the big dog fighting.
Yeah.
Talk about that time frame of you being down here during that at the Atlanta Journal Constitution while that was going on, because Vic was at the height of his career. You by the time you came down here, the Falcons just had went to the NFC Championship in
Yep.
04. So
Yep. Lost to the Eagles up in Philadelphia. So
yes,
Jim Moore had him rolling. He had won right out of the gate.
yep,
Came back the next year. I want to say they were 9-7 and 8-8. They started out like 6-2 and then just tuckered out at the end.
yeah,
Jim gets fired after he goes on a radio station in Seattle and talks about how much he wants the University of Washington head coaching job,
right.
even though Ty Willingham had the
He's the
job
one
at
that
the
got
time.
it. Right, right,
Yeah, and well, he had it. Jim was trying to get in, and he does this right before make or break game. If the Falcons win, they get into the playoffs. If they lose that week, they're out, and they play Dallas, and T.O. lights them up for like 3 touchdowns and 200 plus yards.
right.
So they're out of the playoff picture. So you knew Jim was going to get fired. So that's what started everything. Jim gets fired. They go hire Bobby Petrino.
Oh boy.
And the news about the dogfighting stuff comes out, and that was terrible. I mean, it was a horrible thing to have to cover, because I was cool with Mike. A lot of the stuff we found out, of course, during me and Daryl Ledbetter, the current beat writer, my fellow Howard University brethren.
Yep.
We find out a lot. It was like, damn, Mike, and what are you doing? The city was divided. I mean, it was awful. The city had burned down to ash. The club, it was a disaster of a season. They went from Joey Harrington to Byron Leftwich.
Yeah.
To Chris Redmond, and Bobby walks after 13 games. He just bounces. after Monday night, after the Saints crushed him on a Monday night game, which was a disaster.
Right.
And then it was bananas. But then they go out and they hired Dimitroff and Mike Smith.
Right.
Settled everything down, drafted Matt Ryan, who you could see right away was going to be the guy.
Yeah.
So it was, but the time, the whole Michael Vic dogfight, it was terrible. I mean, every day, it was every day, and what it did to the city, and the way people behaved, and you had friends who wouldn't talk to one another. It was, for those who weren't there, it was as divisive as the political climate we're in right now. And people used to say, like, why are people getting so bent out of shape about him fighting dogs?
Right.
And he's not. People would always say he didn't murder or rape anyone. I said, look, here's the deal.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who's been murdered or raped or that direct thing. But we've all petted a dog or we've all petted a cat. Yeah. So that's why it struck a nerve that was different, and it was awful, and it was every day. And for Bobby Petrino, he had to answer questions about it every day. He had no history with Mike. He came there to coach Mike.
Right.
And so it wore him out, and he didn't have the stomach, for grown men telling him he was crazy with some of the stuff he was trying to do.
Right.
And it was as exhaustive of an experience as I have ever gone through. But it made me better. Even though I honestly wish I never would have had to go through something like that, just for a lot of different reasons.
No, I can totally understand that. And, even, you mentioned Petrino, you mentioned Vic. I mean, what about the conversation that Vic had with Blank about him, Arthur Blank, and probably them talking, because I believe I saw something before where they had like maybe a conversation where Blank asked him about this, and, Vic told him, hey, nothing's going on, nothing to worry about. And then obviously we see the words in big bold letters, indicted Michael Vick. So normally when you have somebody indicted, 9 times out of 10 they got something that's gonna stick pretty good.
Well, I mean, he admitted to everything. So
right.
I mean, yeah, but I mean it was bad. I mean, Arthur loved Mike. He brought him over to his house. Mike played video games with Arthur's kids. I mean, he treated him like a son, and Mike lied to him. Right. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. which is why it's great to see the reconciliation now. I mean, the Falcons have honored Mike. You know, Jim Trotter and I had Mike on our Huddle and Flow podcast.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I told Mike, I said, Mike, man, that was hard. You know, I can't compare to anything you went through in terms of I didn't go to jail or anything, but to cover that and what it did to the city and things like that. He was like, yeah, it was horrible. And I was like, and I know the more you dug and the more you found out, you're like, how could Mike do something like this? And he's just like that. That's part of me, you know, making, you know, the introspective amends with society, with himself and everything else. And he clearly is growing from it.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad him and I had that conversation, because that's something that's been that was in my heart for 12 years.
I can totally understand that, and I definitely was going to get to that, but you know, that was one of the episodes that I heard more so than any other episode. That was a very touching episode when you had Vic on, with you and Mr. Trotter, no question about it. And he is a better man now, obviously more mature, making better decisions, and yeah, no doubt. But this is a great segue, because has there ever been a time, or would you say, have you ever had thoughts with covering some of the most just dramatic kind of things that you've covered in this industry? Have you ever had thoughts of leaving the industry completely?
No, this is why you get into it.
Okay.
It's why you get into it. If you are not, when news arises, no matter how horrible it may affect you,
right?
This is what we're here for. And when I see people like back off of a big story, I'm like, well, you know, why are you doing this? When people question, like, yeah, we don't need to really go that hard. Why not? Like, why are you in this business? It is journalism. And journalism has lost a lot of its teeth over the past couple of years. And again, when I see people like, yeah, I'm not that guy, then what kind of guy are you? And then, not to say everyone is an investigative person. Like, everyone does not have to have fangs. There are people who, you know, have their lane and they're great at it. But when the big story comes, you know, when Deflategate comes, when the bullying situation with the Dolphins comes, you know, when a scandal erupts, do you have the stomach for it or not? And you know, you have to get it. So I've never ever been driven away by doing my job. I mean, that is, I serve the readers and the viewers. That's, you know, I don't even, you know, I get paid by my bosses and whatever, but I serve the readers and the viewers.
No, that's a great mindset to have. And you know, I ask that because a lot of people can't deal with hard news. Mm-hmm. They just can't deal with it. They don't have the stomach to deal with it. They don't have, you know, but as a journalist, you know, you can't just write cookie cutter pieces. It's not going to be always cookie cutter all the time. So that's a great way to explain to people that if you want to get into this business, you're going to have to be able to have the stomach to have some of those times where you're going to have to investigate terrible stuff that happens throughout sports or throughout news, period. So that's just a great answer. I love that. What is one thing that new journalists should know when coming into this industry, and why?
Oh, there's so many, but the main thing is, you know, everyone now thinks they've got to have an opinion or a hot take, or they've got to come in and be them and show their presence. And to some degree, that's true. But you got to earn it. Okay. You have to earn it. Like, nobody really wants to hear what you have to say if they don't know who you are or what you're about.
Right.
Like, you can pop off or say whatever, you know, be a friend of the team, whatever. But if you haven't earned your stripes, you ain't gonna last long. And when I say earn your stripes, I mean that's doing good work out of the gate. Kind of, you know, you don't have to keep your mouth shut, but respecting the people, you know, who are around you. That's why initially when you're like, hey, Miami was your first big job, I'm like, no, Richmond, Virginia was my first big job.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people really helped me grow, and a lot of people really helped me learn by me following their leads when I made my mistakes, showing me how to correct them so I didn't do it again.
Right.
And that was the important part. But you got to know your stuff too, man. You know, you can't fake. You know, you might know the craft a little bit. You might know how to do TV, or you might know how to write, you know, a 6-paragraph, you know, sentence that can be aggregated, you know, story that can be aggregated. But you have to know your information in case there's a glitch, right? Let's say you're reporting something and all of a sudden something pops about it.
Right.
You've got to be able to rock and roll. I'll never forget when the Mueller report came down on the Dolphins bullying scandal.
Right.
And we got it. Like he said, I'm not making any recommendations, but here's some of the trash that went on. And so we're on air and I'm reading a legal pair. I'm hosting it. I'm hosting the show and I'm reading these legal reviews over and over.
Right.
And so, that wasn't straight. Things are changing each paragraph I read.
Right.
And so you have to know your stuff. You really pay attention, watch the news, don't just watch sports, know what's going on in the world so you can put things in proper context. Like with the Colin Kaepernick story, put in proper context.
Right. I like that. And, like I said, and that's a great kind of thing for my podcast, because the podcast that I have is called Work Hard, Play Hard, Conversations with CD. That's the title of my podcast. This is something that people love to be in front of the TV. People love to go on TV. People love to write. But it's like you said, you got to work at your craft. You got to know your information. It's just not being able to pop on TV and do it. People see you on TV and they think that it's all good and think it's sweet. And it's not sweet. You put a lot of time and work behind the scenes doing what you do to prepare yourself to get on TV. And yes, there may be people that help you do what you do in the fashion, but you put the time and work in as well. So I love the answer. There's no question about that. I want to ask some hot shot questions right now. Some this or that questions. So I'm going to ask, burger or tacos?
Tacos.
Spades or poker?
What?
Spades, card games, spades or poker?
Oh, I thought you said something porn. What? Nah.
Come on, spades.
Poker.
Okay. Let's see, theaters or drive-ins?
Ooh, that's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say theaters for the sound quality.
Okay, I like it. Beer, alcohol, or wine?
Oh, come on, wine all day.
Okay.
That's my jam.
All right.
Yeah.
I love it. Basketball or baseball?
Hoops. Even though I love the St. Louis Cardinals all day, every day.
That's why we on opposite
basketball.
ends. I'm a Cubs guy. I'm a Padres guy, but that's okay.
Jesus Christ.
My mother and father are from Chicago, so it got embedded in me. So I can't tell you. I can't believe
all
it.
Right. Okay.
Podcasting or reporting?
Ooh. That's a tough one right there because they're so different. They're so different. I'll probably say podcast because I get to do it with Jim and Thomas Warren. Those are my brothers, man. Okay. All day, every day.
I love it. Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Wow. I'll say Christmas. I will say Christmas on that one.
Okay. MJ or LeBron?
MJ.
Okay.
MJ.
Brady or Montana?
Brady.
Last one, and this is the important one, Steve, okay? Popeyes or KFC?
Man.
All right.
Did you really even think about asking that?
You know what? I figured you would make that kind of face. I figured that.
Is that a dare? Come on. Popeyes all day, bro.
All day, baby. I feel you. Now, you started a new podcast called Huddled and Flow. Obviously, you just said it was with T. Warren and also with Jim Trotter. What made you three want to start this podcast? And what is it about? What is the podcast really about?
Well, first off, we're on hiatus for a couple of weeks. We just need to take a breather after the crazy COVID-induced season. So go look for it now. You're going to find some great archived episodes.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, 2 years ago, Jim and I proposed doing a podcast that would center around diversity. It would center around NFL, but it would talk. We would have conversations that nobody else is having. And when we say that, we could talk about socials. We talked about Michael Vick.
Yeah.
We're talking about stuff that was personal. We're talking about black quarterbacks and a black quarterback in a way that wasn't your traditional. Have we seen the evolution of the black quarterback stuff?
Right.
We were talking about how if he played in today's game, how the coaching is so different and things like that. But we've had guests on, everybody from Chuck D, from Public Enemy,
yes, indeed,
to Soledad O'Brien and Jamel Hill and Gary Champion, to Mike Vick, to Jameis Winston, to Arthur Blank.
Okay.
We've had GMs on, so it is football centric, but it is a very high IQ. It is a very inquisitive. It turns into a conversation about the realist stuff that you can have. That's very topical.
Right.
That's kind of what people want to say, but don't want to say publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And we get them to say that just because it's important. Because we talk about it, man. A lot of people are like, does the NFL really want to, may they try to muzzle you because of the first three letters of your network?
Without question.
They haven't. Like, when we proposed this 2 years ago, we got laughed out of the room. They were like, you want to do what?
Right.
But after the summer of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, everybody wanted all of a sudden get woke. How about revisiting that podcast, guys?
Right.
Okay. We know why you're letting us do it, but don't think we're not going to take the ball and run with it. Right. And it's a smash. It's a smash. I mean, we're giving, we address the racial disparities in coaching and front offices. We get people to come on and have real conversations about it, not just conversations of things that we believe in, but speaking to people who may believe differently than us and have different opinions. So it is. I mean, to go back and listen to some of the stuff. I mean, some of the stuff you got Sean Payton to talk about. Because Sean Payton is like the Greg Popovich or Steve Kerr of the NFL. And he openly admits, hey, the stuff I say works because we're winning. Because otherwise in Louisiana, the stuff I say ain't very popular. But since we're winning, people listen to it.
Right. So
a lot of really good conversation. Then when you go back and you listen to some of the stuff, you're like, hey, 4 months later, now that we're here, like, okay.
Trust. I know what you're talking about, but for people out there that's definitely going to view this, they definitely need to know about Huddle and Flow. Where can they find, as far as the platforms, as far as the different platforms they can listen to?
Well, that's interesting because we were just sold to iHeartRadio. I don't know when that starts. I don't know if that's now, but it was anywhere you get, be it iTunes, be it Spotify, whatever. I don't know when the iHeart stuff kicks in. It may have already. We're on hiatus, so I don't know.
Right.
Go to iHeartRadio as well. Go to search for Huddle and Flow. But all the NFL podcast properties, including Move the Sticks and around the NFL podcast and great podcast that a lot of my coworkers do, will soon be on the whole iHeart network.
All right. Well, yeah, absolutely. Definitely gonna put out the word whenever we find out for more platforms. But I know for me, Spotify was where I heard the Michael Vick, and I definitely tune in to y'all, listen to y'all, because y'all some brothers that definitely speak the real. And I learn, that's for sure. I love to sit back and learn and listen to you guys talk about NFL and also real life stuff, because it's something that I implement that information into my life and to learn, and other people should too. So no doubt about that. Let's get into some NFL talk. Now, recently you came down here to the A. We just had a draft a few weeks ago. Came down here to the A. Atlanta drafts Kyle Pitts. Obviously, 3 quarterbacks get taken in the first 3 picks. We knew Trevor Lawrence was going to Jacksonville. We kind of knew that Wilson was going to go to the Jets as well. Trey Lance, that was a little bit of a surprise. At least for me it was, for San Francisco. But to me, the biggest pick was the Bears taking Justin Fields at 11. What do you think was the biggest surprise pick in the draft? And what is also a player, or I should say, what do you think was the biggest surprise pick in the draft? And what are your 3 games that you're looking forward to this season?
Oh God. Well, I think the biggest surprise came at 3. I wasn't surprised by it. If you go back and you look at my reporting starting about 10 days out.
Yeah.
I was reporting because I got people telling me that they did not make that move to go up to draft Mac Jones. But for whatever reason, people are like, they're drafting Mac Jones or drafting Mac Jones.
Right.
And I was reporting they didn't have to get to 3 because Mac Jones was never on Atlanta's radar at 4.
No.
So unless they felt that somebody was going to come up to 4 to try to draft Mac Jones, then they were coming up to draft Trey Lance. And I was hearing Trey Lance for a week.
Okay.
Even though they kept it real tight, maybe people were, that I was speaking with were just kind of surmising so.
Right.
I was hearing Trey Lance, but I think publicly that was the biggest surprise. Or else some people are saying the Raiders reached for Leatherwood, the tackle out of Alabama. I'm not going to crush him on that because I'm hoping the kid turns out to be a hell of a player.
Right.
Never want to, badmouth a kid for a team drafting him where they drafted him.
Right.
A lot of the games I'm looking for. I mean, what is it? I don't have a schedule right in front of me, but some of the games that I think will be crucial, especially down the stretch. I think the Rams 49. I think the Rams are going to be really good this year with Matthew Stafford as their quarterback, and if Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, the 49ers are going to be in it to win it. And
really?
Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number. They used to work together. They run the same system, and it is like even when they're beat up, the 49ers give the Rams hell. So that's always a game I'm looking forward to. Anything Green Bay involved. Let's see about the Aaron Rodgers situation is interesting. And I think the 2 games between the Browns and the Ravens.
Oh man.
Are going to be really good because I want to see the Browns, but they did, to me, they had the best offseason out of any team.
Right.
Right. So they really fortified their secondary, getting Troy Hill and Josh Johnson out from the Rams to help their secondary out.
Yes.
Right. And then in the draft, they fortified and they draft JOK. Okay. So he's this hybrid linebacker type. And I'm old enough to remember back when I covered the Falcons, when the Carolina Panthers drafted Thomas Davis out of Georgia, who was a hybrid safety linebacker, to stop Michael Vick.
Yeah.
The Browns drafted JOK to at least give them a spy for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson puts it on the Browns every time they play.
Yes, he
and
does.
So I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out because the Ravens are going to continue stalling in the playoffs unless they open up this offense. And I think they're going to open it up this year based on some of the personnel that they've acquired. And they have to. They just have to graduate because they can't put enough points on the board. And Buffalo showed them that in the playoffs last year.
Without question. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the Ravens are 32nd as far as their wide receivers. And
it's not on the wide receivers. It's not on the wide receivers.
You don't think
on.
So? Okay.
No, it's on the design of the game. It is a run-based offense.
Okay.
That just does now. So the wide receivers can't get open, and I get that to some degree. But you know what? Sometimes you got to do some things to give your wide receivers some opportunities, and they don't quite do that enough. We had David Culley, the new Houston Texans head coach, on the podcast, and he was their passing game coordinator. He said that they've got to open things up, and he really thinks that they're going to open things up because Lamar can do it. He can do it. They just have not done it yet.
I can believe that. I do. You mentioned the Rams. They're actually my team to represent the NFC this year.
They're going to be good, man.
Very good. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. That's early predictions here from me. But I also think the Bills and AFC. I think it's going to be the Bills' time. I think the Rams and Bills, that's my early prediction of Super Bowl of them because I do love Josh Allen. They were right there in the AFC Championship game, taking an early lead on Kansas City before Kansas City obviously came back. I do think Kansas City's going to have something to say, of course. Anytime you got 1-5 there, you're always going to have something to say. But one of the surprises that I have is I don't think the Ravens are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they'll make the playoffs because I like Cleveland a lot.
Okay, remember now we got 7 teams and an additional game. Yeah. So who else? So when you start counting down those teams,
yeah.
So are you putting like 2 teams in the North and you putting the Steelers in?
Yes. Steelers in a wild card. Yeah. I'm putting Buffalo.
So Buffalo.
Buffalo. I'm putting the Titans.
Okay.
I'm gonna put the Colts in as a wild card. I'm going to put KC.
Okay.
I'm going to put Cleveland. That's 5. I believe, yeah, that's
You,
5.
you said the Steelers.
The Steelers, and I believe that's 6. Um, and the other team that I have, it's a toss-up. I do have the Chargers. I'm being a homer there, though, really. I do have the Chargers in there. Ravens possibly, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I have the Chargers.
Interesting. What about you didn't mention the Dolphins.
No, I did not. I do like the Dolphins. Don't get me wrong. They were 10-6 last year, and they almost made it. Don't get me wrong. But remind you, it's all dependent about Tua's development because no longer Ryan Fitzpatrick is there. Remember, Ryan Fitzpatrick won a lot of those games, as you know. So for me, in my mind, it's about Tua's development. Now they did get another weapon in Waddle, and that's great. Brian Flores, great defensive mind, and he has a good, solid defense. Can they duplicate that season that they had last year, though? I'm not sure because New England is also going to be better than what they was last year, in my opinion.
The Dolphins have to score points because they led the NFL in takeaways last year, and that's hard to do, year in and year out. So I think Tua is going to be fine this year. I think they're going to open up the offense a little bit.
Okay.
I think they're going to be a really good football team this year.
Wow. Okay. So you do think the Dolphins get in?
Yep. Nope. I think they're going to be really good this year.
Okay. So if the Dolphins get in, which one of the teams that I mentioned gets knocked out? Do you think the Colts make it?
I don't think. Oh, no, the Colts are going. Colts. I mean, well, that's all on Carson Wentz. What you just said about Tua is all on Carson Wentz. Is he going to have the mental aptitude? When I say mental aptitude, I don't say that. Is he going to have the stomach to deal with adversity? He showed last year in Philadelphia. He didn't. But I think that team is put together to do it. Tennessee is a team to watch to possibly step back.
Okay.
I like them, but they lost some pieces.
Yes, they did.
And and missing on a first rounder like they did last year, that hurts your draft stock. So I love Cleveland.
Okay.
I like the Ravens. So there's 2.
Okay.
Kansas City.
That's 3.
Kansas City's 3.
Yeah.
I like, the Chargers is a sneaky one. The Chargers they could be really good this year. Okay, so that's 4.
Yeah.
So we've got Miami and the Bills. So
that's
5 and 6. So my 7th team, would be the Ravens.
I think you said Baltimore.
Or did I not mention? Okay, did I mention them? Okay, so I've got Cleveland,
Baltimore. You said
Kansas City, Chargers,
Miami Chargers. That's 5.
Colts.
That's 6.
Dolphins and Bills. So that's 7.
That is 7. Okay, I like that. So Tennessee, you think, take a step back? They don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're a good team. I really like them, but they've taken some hits. They
have, and obviously losing their head coach to us here in Atlanta, or not head coach, offensive coordinator.
Their OC.
That's now a head coach here in Atlanta. We'll see how King Henry does. It's hard to duplicate a great season when you run for 2,000 yards.
He's done it during near 3 years in a row. So they've got that formula pretty well done, pretty well stocked.
Yes, indeed. The last thing that I want to ask you is about advice, and that is for anybody out there, once again, that wants to be in this industry. Because like I said, we talked about your history. You've been at the Richmond, Virginia Dispatch. You've been at the Washington Post, Miami Herald, Constitution. Now you've been with the NFL Network for 13 plus years. So longevity in this career is what everybody is trying to duplicate. So what advice do you give to up and coming journalists, people that want to be on, reporters that want to be on TV, that want duplicate the same kind of career that you have?
Well, like I said before, you got to know your stuff. You have got to know your stuff, not just the craft, but you have got to know what you're talking about. That's putting in the time, the research. And that's not just researching stats, whatever. I mean, learning high school sports and learning how to deal with people and parents. That was very, very important to me, and learning how to stand outside in the rain and the snow and the bad weather, when things got crazy. That was important, just to kind of get the thick skin. But if there's a universal piece, something I would say besides knowing your stuff is you got to treat people a certain way.
Yeah.
Because if you are a complainer, you're done. You're not going to last, because there are people who don't complain who can do what we do. There's a million people who can do what I do. But I try to treat people a certain way. And that's always with respect and courtesy. And, always try to make somebody feel better by the time we end a conversation. Every time. I do not serve myself. I serve others. Um, and trust, man. You've got to develop a reputation of trust. And out of the gate, that's hard to do other than by just doing quality work. And you're going to make mistakes, but acknowledge the mistakes. Don't blame someone else. Acknowledge your mistakes, learn from them, and grow from them. I mean, that's the way you earn trust. Like, okay, you made a mistake, but you came back with something strong, but always treat people like they are, they have made you better. And you serve them, and you don't serve yourself. And I think that's highly important.
Yeah, what I take from that is, being humble, being resilient, being
Yep.
respectful, and just knowing that, you got to put the work in, know the information, but also conduct yourself in a professional manner at
Yep.
all times. And that's something I definitely take away from. And yes, I appreciate you, Steve, for coming on here, NFL reporter for the NFL Network, coming on my podcast. I really do appreciate it, my man. I really do.
I
Uh,
appreciate you asking, man. Anytime.
no doubt, no doubt. I always end like this. Is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude?
Be a window and not a mirror. And what I mean by that is let people see the real world through you, and don't let them see a reflection of themselves. Because if they can see something bigger and more inspirational out there, instead of just seeing themselves every day, with your help, I think that's truly a way you should try to live. To always try again, to serve others, to make them feel better about having experience with you.
Be a window, not a mirror. I like that. I like that. And also, gotta conclude on this with my good friend, or I would say friend now, Kendra Douglas says hello.
Tell her hello. She's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's a rock star right there. That's a
yes,
rock
indeed.
star.
Yes, indeed. We connected just about a few days ago, and now we're in touch. So, absolutely. I told her I was talking to you. She said, tell him I said hello. So, I definitely did. No doubt. But yes, indeed, man. That's about it. And thank you very much for joining me on here. And you take care and enjoy the rest of your Monday night.
Same to you, Chris.
Take care, buddy.
You got it now. Take care.
Bye.